Evening. Welcome to the September 13th, 2021 Troy City Council meeting. Please rise this evening for the invocation by Police Chaplain Bob Cornwall, and please remain standing for a very special presentation of the colors by members of the Troy Police Department Honor Guard and the Troy Fire Department Honor Guard, and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. God of grace and mercy, these are challenging times. There is great concern about many things, from the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic to our economic well-being, from our mental health to the growing divisions within our country. Many are frustrated with the way things are, and so we tend to turn on each other. We demand freedom, but forget that with freedom comes great responsibility. It is in the midst of this reality that we come before you this evening to ask that the mayor and city council be given the wisdom they need to make good decisions on behalf of the community. It's not an easy position to be in, with so many competing interests claiming their attention. Hard choices often must be made, and some will be disappointed with the outcome. And so we come to give thanks for their commitment, the commitment made by each one of these leaders to the welfare of this community. May they know your grace so that they can pursue the greater good of all. May we, as members of the broader community, receive some of the same grace so we can love our neighbors as we love ourselves. We also come this evening in the shadow of the 20th anniversary of the attacks of September 11th, 2001. Many of us have vivid memories of that day. We remember where we were when we heard the news. Some in this community may have even been personally affected by the news of the day and the days that followed. Time has passed, and for most of us, that day, though infamous, sits far back in our memories. It is only when we come to the anniversary of this day that long-buried memories come to the surface. And this is especially true on this anniversary as we ponder the end of the American presence in Afghanistan, bringing to a close nearly 20 years of war that has claimed the opening decades of the 21st century. As we ponder our memories, which may be conflicted, we must stop to remember those who died that day, as well as those who survived. We especially remember this day the first responders, many of whom died when they bravely entered the inferno, hoping to save the lives of those caught in its midst. As we remember those who died that day, we remember in our prayers those who survived, many of whom wonder why they lived while others died. And we remember also those family members, friends of the lost loved ones that day. May they find solace in your presence. We wonder why these things happen. And with these questions rummaging around in our hearts and minds, we pause to remember, therefore, all those who were present in New York, Washington, and that Pennsylvania field, whether living or dead. And we commit them to your care and ask that we might never forget them as we pursue our daily lives. I come before you this evening to offer this prayer as a chaplain for our police department. I hold in my heart the lives of our first responders, especially our police officers and firefighters, who have committed their lives in service to this community. So as the council meets to do the business of the community, may we all commit ourselves, whether council members, city workers, first responders, citizens, or neighbors, to the pursuit of the common good for all. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. Thank you to Pastor Cornwall for his invocation. Is this mic on? Thank you, Police Chaplain Cornwall, for your prayer. Thank you to the Troy Police Department Color Guard as well as the Troy Fire Department Color Guard. Both chiefs are back in the room, so please thank the gentleman who participated on our behalf. We appreciate it very much. The Troy City Council meeting of September 13th, 2021 is now called to order. We'll ask for the roll call. Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening. First up are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have a good handful of them this evening. First up will be C1, a proclamation to celebrate Troy resident and Miss India USA 2021 winner Vaidehai Dongre. And I will also, along with the winner, I'll be joined by State Representative Padma Kupa, who has a presentation from the state as well. So please join us at the podium. Come right in. You know, my State Representative Kupa, I'll go ahead and start. We're in my chamber tonight, so, all right? All right. So this is the proclamation to celebrate Troy resident and Miss India USA 2021 winner, Vaidehai Dongre. Whereas since 1980, the Miss India USA pageants have provided a platform to empower and encourage women to further their goals while celebrating their Indian heritage. And whereas 61 contestants from 30 states competed in the 2021 Miss India USA, Mrs. India USA, and Miss Teen India USA in New Jersey in July 2021. And whereas on July 18th, 2021, 25-year-old Troy resident and business development manager Vaidehai Dongre was crowned Miss India USA. And whereas Vaidehai is a graduate of the University of Michigan with a degree in international studies, and whereas she also won the Miss Talented Award for her flawless performance of an Indian classical dance from Indian classical dance form Kathak. And I sound like former Mayor Slater. I apologize. For those of you who know. Anyway, we'll get back to this. It's very important. Whereas Vaidehai strives to be a role model for young girls and promote women's financial independence and literacy. And whereas Vaidehai will represent the United States at the Miss India Worldwide pageant this fall in Mumbai. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Troy hereby congratulate Vaidehai Dongre on her accomplishment in winning the 2021 Miss India USA competition and wish her the best of luck in the Miss India Worldwide pageant. And be it further resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy invite all residents to celebrate Vaidehai Dongre's achievement and thank her for being a great role model for our city and the Indian community. This proclamation is presented this 13th day of September 2021, signed by myself as mayor, all members of the Troy City Council. I present it to you and congratulate you. You are absolutely making Troy proud. And as I met your father, I said this is just one of many things I'm sure he's proud of you for, but we're very proud of you on behalf of Troy City Council.
Thank you.
So here
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll switch it up. How about that?
Okay, so I'm not going to read this because I had so much to write. I've known this young lady for about 23 years. She must have been 2 when I met her. Vaidehai's parents, Satish and Manisha, I count among my very good friends, and I couldn't be prouder of someone who is like a daughter to me. Vaidehai, you are a proud product not only of University of Michigan, but also our Troy School District. And I am so honored to be able to present this tribute to you from the state of Michigan on behalf of the State House representative that I am lucky and fortunate enough to be for all of us here. But thank you so much for taking the time to represent. I know a beauty pageant is not easy. The requirements and the grueling things that you had to do to win the competition is stiff, and you did us proud. Troy is very happy that you are representing us in the world pageant coming up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My namaste and good evening to all of you. I would really like to thank the City of Troy for being a diverse, energizing, and safe place to grow up in for the past 20 years. I moved from India to Troy, Michigan at the age of 5 and participated in the Mini Miss Troy pageant in 2001. Since then, the community has helped me grow in immeasurable ways, from taking part in the summer reading program at the Troy Public Library every year to doing Indian classical dance at the community kaleidoscope events with my mother. I am a proud graduate of Troy schools, including Morse Elementary, Baker Middle School, and International Academy East, and also want to take this time to thank the wonderful teachers that helped mold, shape, and guide me into becoming the best version of myself. Your contribution to the community is more than you can imagine. Thank you once again, Mr. Mayor and Padma Aunty, and I hope to make you all proud at Miss India Worldwide this year. Thank you.
Keep us posted. Next up is C2. It's a proclamation to celebrate National Recovery Month. Is Kathy Yunker here this evening? Kathy, come on up. Didn't recognize you with the mask. My apologies. Kathy is the OCHN Justice Initiatives Manager from Oakland Community Health Network. Good evening. So I'm going to read this proclamation into the record. It's a proclamation to declare September 2021 as National Recovery Month in the City of Troy. Whereas substance abuse recovery is important for individual well-being and vitality, as well as for families, communities, and businesses. And whereas according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration in 2019, 9.5 million people ages 18 and older had both a substance abuse disorder and a mental illness. And whereas we will continue to educate and raise awareness of the risks and potential harm associated with prescription drug misuse, we believe everyone facing substance use disorders deserves the benefit of recovery. And whereas stigma and stereotypes associated with substance use disorders often keep people from seeking treatment that could improve quality of life, substance use disorders occur when the recurrent use of alcohol and/or drugs causes clinically or functionally significant impairment, such as health problems, disability, and failures to meet major responsibilities at work, school, or home. And whereas substance use disorder recovery is a journey of healing and transformation, enabling people to live in a community of his or her choice while striving to achieve his or her full potential. And whereas substance use disorder recovery benefits individuals with substance use disorders by focusing on their abilities to live, work, learn, and fully participate and contribute to our society, and also enriches the culture of our community. And whereas Thursday, September 16th, 2021, marks the 14th annual Oakland County Substance Abuse Recovery Celebration and Walk, held at Oakland Community Health Network's Troy location at 5505 Corporate Drive. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy hereby recognizes September 2021 as National Recovery Month. And be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy joins with Oakland Community Health Network and calls upon our citizens, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of substance abuse, use, and the need for appropriate and accessible services to promote recovery. This proclamation is presented this 13th day of September 2021. I present it to you, Kathy, on behalf of OHCN. We thank you very much for your service. We have a few words on substance use disorder before we move on to the next one. Kathy's here for 2 this evening. She's the lucky winner. C3 is a proclamation to declare September 2021 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in the City of Troy. I will read this into the record. Whereas September is known as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and is intended to help promote awareness surrounding suicide prevention resources available in our community. The simple goal is to learn how to help those around us and how to talk about suicide without increasing the risk of harm. And whereas World Suicide Prevention Day is observed each year on September 10th, And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background. According to the CDC, each year more than 48,000 people die by suicide. And whereas in May 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, hospital visits for suspected suicide attempts increased among adolescents aged 12 to 17 years, especially girls. And whereas local organizations like Suicide Prevention Services and national organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness and National Suicide Prevention Lifeline work to help individuals in crisis and provide resources to shed light on the battles of suicide and mental illness, which often remain too taboo to discuss. And whereas the City of Troy is no different than any other community in the country, but chooses to publicly state and place our full support behind local educators, mental health professionals, athletic coaches, scout leaders, police officers, and parents as partners in supporting our community and simply being available to one another. And whereas all members of our community should understand that throughout life's struggles, everyone needs the occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting our own battles. Every year, thousands of individuals die by suicide, leaving behind friends and family members to navigate the tragedy of loss. Often, feelings of shame and stigma prevent them from talking openly. And whereas we encourage all residents to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their family, their friends, and their neighbors, to genuinely convey their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate. A simple phone call, text message, or hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. So now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy City Council hereby proclaims the month of September 2021 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in the City of Troy, and encourages all residents to support one another as partners to support our community. And be it further resolved that we commend Oakland Community Health Network's commitment to being a zero suicide organization and cultivating a network of providers who are engaged in the zero suicide philosophy. We encourage everyone to practice kindness and acceptance for one another as we live and work together in the City of Troy. This proclamation is presented this 13th day of September 2021, again signed by myself as the mayor, all members of the Troy City Council. I present this to you as well, Kathy, and I thank you for what you're doing on behalf of our community.
Thank you. I just want to speak very briefly, but let everyone know how much Oakland Community Health Network appreciates the commitment of the mayor and the council and the entire community in Troy to really care for one another. We look around and we know that substance use, abuse, mental health issues, and suicide are among every community. Very few families are left untouched by friends, family members, people of faith, people in your neighborhood. It's not something any of us can step away from and ignore. So we thank you so very much. We are very proud to be your neighbors here in Troy, where our offices are located. And we encourage anyone that you know in need of help, or if you yourselves have a need for information and assistance, please do reach out to us. We appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and again, thank you to the Oakland Community Health Network for your presence here in Troy, but all the work you're doing for our community and Oakland County as a whole. Please convey that back to your offices as well. C4 is a proclamation to recognize and celebrate Patriot Week here in the city of Troy. I'm not going to read it into the record this evening as there's no one to present the certificate to, but it is part of our record, and please check that in the agenda packet as C4. C5 is a proclamation to celebrate and recognize the International Day of Peace on September 21st, 2021. I'm very honored and happy to have two representatives from the Troy area interfaith group, Mehru Ahmad and Ed Chezik. If you could please both come forward. And I will read this into the record. It's good to see both of you. Again, this is a proclamation to recognize the International Day of Peace, September 21st, 2021. Whereas the issue of peace embraces the deepest hopes of all peoples and remains humanity's guiding inspiration. And whereas in 1981, the United Nations proclaimed the International Day of Peace be devoted to commemorating and strengthening the ideals of peace both within and among all nations and peoples. Whereas the United Nations expanded the observance of the International Day of Peace in 2001 to include the call for a day of global ceasefire and nonviolence, and invited all nations and people to honor a cessation of hostilities for the duration of the day. And whereas there is growing support within our city for the observance of the International Day of Peace, which affirms a vision of our world at peace and fosters cooperation between individuals, organizations, and nations. And whereas global crises impel all citizens to work toward converting humanity's noblest aspirations for world peace into a practical reality for future generations. And whereas the 2021 Peace Day theme, Recovering Better for an Equitable and Sustainable World, invites everyone to join the efforts of the United Nations family to focus on recovering better for a more equitable and peaceful world. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy does hereby proclaim September 21, 2021 as the International Day of Peace in the City of Troy, and urges all citizens to join us in recognizing this day to discover different faith traditions, teachings on peace, or any other education and public awareness activities in order to help establish a global day of peace in our homes, our communities, and between nations. And be it further resolved that the City Council urges all government agencies, organizations, schools, places of worship, and individuals in our city to commemorate the International Day of Peace, including joining the Troy Interfaith Group at their monthly meetings and events, including their International Day of Peace program on September 21st at 7 p.m., this year via Zoom again. There are other special programs for year-round programs for people to engage in dialogues about peace, faith, and justice among all religions locally and globally. This proclamation is presented this 13th day of September 2021. I'm happy to present it to you, Mayru, and you, Ed, and we look forward to having this celebration next week. We'll give it to Mayru. How about that?
Assalamu alaikum, namaste, shalom alaikum, pakseban, peace and goodness. Man needs peace as much as he needs the air to breathe and the water to drink. It is the buttress of dignity that elevates the human condition and draws us all closer to the divine and closer to each other. I ask all present here to reaffirm their faith in one another and the divine, that we may truly bring about a world of loving kindness. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Thank you very much.
That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations this evening. We move on to carryover items, of which there are none, and as well as public hearings, also being none. So that'll leave us with public comment. It looks like we have 2 people signed up for public comment this evening. As a reminder, the rules of procedure are printed in your agenda packet as to what is appropriate conduct for public comment. We ask that you strictly follow those, and we'll have 3 minutes. Both of you who are signed up have done this before, so you know the rules. When it turns yellow, that's 1 minute left. When it turns red, that's the end of your time. So first up is Cynthia Wilshire. And thank you for putting the microphone back.
Okay. Good evening, all. I'm just here to say, finally, we have some senior programs going on. We've watched tons of kids going to their things to do all summer, and we're sitting here. We were the first ones vaccinated. We waited and waited and waited. Finally, this week we were rewarded. Except we were put in a room that is much too small for our group. We were originally told we could have 4 hours, 4 hours of time. We have been here 22 years. We were we were the only quilt group here for all this time and part of the rec department. We quilted every Wednesday from 9 to 4. We did lots of projects like placemats for Meals on Wheels, hats for the homeless, baby quilts for teenage mothers and hospitals, all kinds of charities. We aren't doing these just for ourselves. There's a lot of charity work being done by this group. We found that we've always had the front room with all the light. Now we're in a center room that's too small with terrible lighting, and we have always had one whole 8-foot table for our stuff. We bring in sewing machines, irons, all kinds of things, and the equipment, the fabric and things that we bring in a wagon or a cart. We've asked for more time. We were told that's the only room we can have. We now have 19 people signed up. We have 5 more people that are coming this week that were not here last week that are signing up. We normally have 25 to 30 people. And this last week, we were short 7 tables. We couldn't work. We were sitting 2 and 3 to a table. We couldn't choose our machines. We're put in a place farthest away from convenient handicap parking. The back and front is too far away from this room, where when we were in the front, and originally we were in the banquet room. We're just asking, how come somebody comes in a few years ago and they do card games and such, and they have 3 sessions, 3.5 sessions. We have 1 4-hour session. Can I have some extension?
Can you do it another minute?
Yes,
Is there consensus to give her another minute? I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
All right.
We would just like to ask, how come card games can get 10.5 hours and we're limited to 4 hours? I had asked for morning session and Judy an afternoon session, and they told us no, we couldn't have that. And that's the only room available. But there was a little notice in the paper that said, all are welcome at the community center, all the seniors, any group. Well, we don't feel welcome. And my last comment is, we have been shut in for a long time. We have been shut out of doing anything. And now we are definitely being shut out because we cannot do the one thing that we would like to do and be a service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilshire. City Manager Miller, is there a chance that she could speak with somebody either after this meeting at some point? I'm not sure where we are. I know I've received some communication from Ms. Wilshire about this, but again, we don't set policy, or we don't do the actual planning of what happens at the community center, but I just want to make sure that she's not left.
Yeah, we can talk with her. This is the first I've heard of it.
Okay. Stick around, please. Next up is Mr. Ryan Johnson.
Hello. The reason I'm here today is I want to bring up an issue that is concerning the Troy Police Department. So on at least 10 different occasions, the Troy Police Department, with regards to the mask mandate issued from Oakland County, has violated Michigan law MCL 752.11, failure to uphold the law in violations of MCL 380.1307B, MCL 750.137B, MCL 750-462A, and MCL 333.20201. So this is concerning, obviously. The city ought to be aware that while this seems to be a school and health board related dispute with the public at large, that the Detroit Police Department still has a responsibility to uphold the law. Failure to do so under MCL 752.11 is a criminal statute, and it creates liability for the department and the city.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment this evening. Now is an opportunity for members of city administration or city council to reply or respond. Anybody have anything specifically to say this evening? A response? I'll just say, Mr. Johnson, certainly I appreciate you coming forward again. I'm sure what you've just said has been heard by those who actually have some interest as far as the police department and city administration stuff, and I'm sure it'll be looked into. So thank you. Next up are postponed items. There are none, so we move on to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments this evening and no city council appointments. I-2 are board and committee nominations. I do have 2 nominations to the Downtown Development Authority this evening. I'd like to renominate Kenny Koza and Daniel McLeish to the Downtown Development Authority, both for the terms expiring September 30th, 2025.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, that we reappoint or renominate Kenny Koza and Daniel McLeish to the Downtown Development Authority for the terms expiring September 30, 2025. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes mayoral nominations this evening. I don't believe there are any city council nominations this evening. So that concludes board and committee nominations. There's no closed session requested in I-3, so we'll move on to I-4, which is a bid waiver, golf course maintenance equipment, and that'll be introduced by Brian Gould, the Recreation Director. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you is a bid waiver to purchase Toro grounds maintenance equipment for the golf course from Spartan Distributors using the Indigo Golf contract pricing for a total estimated cost, including trade-ins, of $143,736.98. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gould? Somebody excited to move this resolution? Councilmember Hoderick?
I will move I-4 bid waiver golf course maintenance equipment as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Crainga, that we approve I-4 bid waiver golf course maintenance equipment as presented and printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Chamberlain Crainga.
Just a quick comment. On my time on council, something I've really observed is I appreciate city staff, the way in which we take advantage of trade-in opportunities whenever we can. And in this case, it comes at $6,750. And whether it's police vehicles or whether it's this golf course maintenance equipment, it's just something to point out to the community. So thank you for always looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Any other discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Next up is I-5, a bid waiver for water valve equipment and parts, and that'll be introduced by Paul Trosper, Water and Sewer Operations Manager. I missed the competitions with the valve guy. It's been so long.
Actually,
Those demonstrations up
they're
here.
not even having them in the state right now.
Oh, well, hopefully those will come back. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I'm here tonight to discuss the reasoning behind this bid waiver for some Ross manufacturing valve parts. The Ross valves, we have 15 of them in our system. and they are our regulators. They basically keep our pressures in check, and without them, our system would be, wouldn't be like it is today. It keeps everything, the pressures from one end of the city to the other in control, and because they do such an important job, they require a lot of maintenance. And we've been purchasing from Ross for 50 plus years, actually. And they're a sole source provider for their parts. And on an annual basis, we're in there working on these valves. They require quite a bit of maintenance. And to have this bid waiver to where we can buy the parts as needed would really expedite a lot of our maintenance. And in the unforeseen circumstance where we had something happen that we weren't really ready for, it would also expedite the purchase of a part that we may need to keep our system working in, proper conditions.
All right, thank you, Paul. Any questions?
I just had a quick question.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
I just had a quick question. So there are 8 valves presently that are by 2 different manufacturers, 2 other manufacturers?
Yes.
So the goal is not to replace those presently,
No.
right? It's just more moving forward?
To replace the valves would be very costly, in some places almost prohibitive, just because the system was designed to fit this certain valve. So the other ones that we have in the system, there's only a handful. And in the clay valves, we really don't have to do as much maintenance on them. They're a newer design. And going forward, if we put new valves in, we would go with that design. But these Ross valves that are in place, which have been there for many years, are not going anywhere. So we have to maintain them, and that's why we would ask for this bid waiver for the Ross valves, because we buy more of those than we do the others.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Abraham.
I'll move I-5 bid waiver, water valve equipment and parts as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve I-5 bid waiver, water valve equipment and parts as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. I will just say, obviously, the water valves and pressure issues and keeping our water safe and our residents from having any
Absolutely.
crises and boil water advisories is a big part of what we should be doing up here. So I'm very happy to support this, and thank you for proactively looking out to have this and make it that much safer and quicker to respond if there is ever a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6, Open Space Preservation Easement for Meadows of Troy, and that'll be introduced by City Attorney Lori Grigg-Bloom.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And this is the, otherwise known as the Section 1 development, which Council approved on June 14th of 2021. And what you have before you is just a continuation. So this is the document that actually makes sure that the open space is preserved in perpetuity. In addition to the open space preservation, there is also a parking lot maintenance agreement that was also part of your resolution to make sure that there would be an acceptable parking lot maintenance document. And so both of those are present for your approval. I would just also indicate Mr. Clark is in the audience if you have any questions for him as well.
Thank you, City Attorney Bloom. Any questions? Councilmember Hamilton.
I just have an indirect question, but do we have an updated timeline on when this project's going to break ground or anything?
I would defer to Mr.
Yeah,
Clark as far as when
Right.
the progress.
We have people ready to move in. That's the thing. So that's the reality.
Jim Clark, 6905 Telegraph Road, Robertson Brothers Home. We would hope to, get our approvals and close this year. I don't know whether we'll get land balancing. That's an engineering question, and we would certainly be on in the spring and start sales immediately. So everything's in place for us to go. This was the last piece, and so thank you very much, hopefully, for your vote tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you. We have a history with this and deals falling through, so I was curious, but not to jinx it.
Any other questions? All right, I'll move I6, open space preservation easement for Meadows of Troy, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I6, open space preservation easement for Meadows of Troy, as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. All right. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Go get those shovels. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda for future discussion and consideration? Councilmember Abraham?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. I will say one thing about J3B is a proclamation to celebrate Welcoming Week, which we'll present at the next council meeting, but we're actually in the middle of Welcoming Week right now, so I did want to acknowledge that. And if not, I thought Rebecca might. So, all right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved this evening. Next up is memorandums and future council agenda items. There are two to announce this evening. K1, announcement of public hearings. A, September 27th, 2021, Troy Crossing Planned Unit Development, file number PUD JPLN 2021-0008, proposed amendment to Troy Crossing PUD, north side of Big Beaver, east of John R., parcels 88-20-24-352-067 and 068, section 24, currently zoned PUD 8, planned unit development 8 district. Also B, it's September 27th, 2021, a conditional rezoning, CR JPLN 2021-001, proposed Pine View condominiums, west side of DeQuinder, north of Long Lake, parcel 88-20-12-476-070, section 12, from NN Neighborhood Node J and EP Environmental Protection to NN Neighborhood Node J. So those will be up in 2 weeks. There are no council referrals this evening, so we'll move on to reports. Anyone like to discuss any of the reports that are listed this evening? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to briefly mention M2A, which is the 2021 lead and copper rule monitoring update. One thing I'm extremely proud of in Troy is that we have no lead pipes here. And I know in the Michigan and Flint, it's a huge concern, water safety, and we're one of the best around. We have no lead in our pipes and our copper levels. They did testing 30 different samples throughout the city of our water, and the copper levels were on average 10% of what the limit was. So incredibly great job by our water and sewer departments, and I'm really proud of this.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to comment on two things. The first is M03A. It's a letter of appreciation from Sal Trupiano regarding excellent customer service from AHAB at the Troy Family Aquatic Center. As many of you know, my son was taking lessons over at TFAC this summer, and we were there almost every Sunday. And I do want to call AHAB, and he is the manager over at TFAC, and observed his excellent relations with his staff and the way he handled many issues under pressure. So it's great to see residents, and I thank this resident for calling that out. And just thank them for all their work, knowing that season came to an end. And so proud that by our decision to do those repairs, that we were able to open the aquatic center for this summer. I know there are many happy faces because of it. So that was the first one. Second one, of course, is the MO2B around the Verizon small cell update. And I just want to start by thanking city staff. Want to thank Mark, I want to thank Bob, I want to thank Bill Hoodery, his entire staff for both this report that is in the council agenda packet for all to read, as well as for that meeting that I know you had with Verizon last week. And many of us, I know all of us on council, my neighborhood who's been impacted, saw the article that came out in the Detroit Free Press last week that really talked about, as the headline, the subtitle states, local leaders say state laws usurping their ability to do things. And of course, I think with this article, which is very balanced, it affirms that. As we were saying to residents, our hands are really tied, whether it's I-75 with the noise, or if it's regarding the small cell issue. And the article, I appreciated it. There was an academic who was consulted for the piece, Michigan Municipal League, ProTech was brought out. So it really shows that, truly, that our hands are tied in many ways. For myself, I did do some research. I'm a researcher at heart. I am a nerd as well. I want to always find out as much as I can about any issue. And so I did do some of my own research and spoke with someone who had really worked on the matter, and just a couple of takeaways just to share as well that also kind of come out in this piece in the FREEP, is that firstly, as bad as Act 365 is in terms of limiting our power on these small cells, it could have been much worse. What initially was in Lansing was actually far worse. And that we in some ways should be lucky as a state. There are states like Minnesota that only got 40 feet by which a community can suggest alternative locations, and we in Michigan have 75. Another takeaway in consulting this person was that, you can take to heart, a place like in this neighborhood in Buckingham Woods, it being a place where it's a community gathering spot, you have ice cream socials, that is something that you can bring to bear and raise regarding, alternative locations. We recognize, and the report from City Manager is clear, that Verizon has very specific requirements, so it's not easy to find a location, and I know that full well, and I know this has been communicated to the neighborhood as well. But again, I thank city staff for continuing to have that conversation. And I do want to thank Verizon. As Verizon, the report says, Verizon will reevaluate the proposed new utility pole locations to determine if alternate locations are available. So I do thank them for looking into that, because they don't need to, but they are. And I recognize that will take time, and we may not know more until the end of this year or next year. But again, thank you to city staff. And I have been an advocate, as you all know, for trying to find a way to at least make residents aware of this new technology that we're going to find more and more of in our city and in the entire region. I was talking to a neighbor today as I brought my son home from the bus station, and that was exactly what he said to me, is that he understands our hands are tied as a city, but his question still is there a way to inform residents? And I also was speaking with Jean Stein, because her church will have one of these actually in front of her church, and we were communicating. And she said I could share this with all of you here on council, also raised it. Is there some way to be able to just inform people? Because she actually my neighbors were going to her as well during this situation, and she said she didn't know much about it, and it would have helped if she could have been able to point folks to something. So just raise that. But I trust our city staff. You guys know what is best in terms of how we approach this and how we share information. And I know you guys are thinking of things. So again, just want to thank you for all your work on it.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango.
Mayor?
Yeah, Mark.
I would just like to add a comment. I want to thank Councilwoman Chamberlain-Crango for her nice words, but I want to call out Senior Civil Engineer Antonio Cicchetti. He actually reviews every single right-of-way permit, including these 5G. He's the guy doing it all every day.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that very much. Additional comments on the reports? All right, next up are council comments. Council comments? Councilmember Hoderick?
I spent a lot of time this weekend reflecting on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, as I'm sure many people did. That day, I was so shocked, I barely took in the events, and it's amazing how much it hits you. 20 years later, it comes back fresh. It was especially poignant tonight for our police and fire honor guard to be here, because that was also the 20th anniversary that we lost Officer Mullivill of our Troy PD. He had had a heart attack on a call a couple days before, and he passed away on 9/11. So our first responders on that day, while dealing with the shock of the attacks, were also dealing with the loss of an officer who was, by all accounts, very beloved. And I just think back to that and the work that we all do. Everyone in the community right now, healthcare providers, teachers, principals in our schools, our police officers, those that work with Alliance Mobile, our fire departments, we are in a time. 20 years later, here we are in a time. And we've had weird times along the way here in Troy. I think about the arguments of the distracted driver ordinance of 13 years ago. Now we kind of would, Councilwoman Abraham is nodding. There was a huge brouhaha in the community about our police department enforcing an ordinance designed to keep people safe on the roads. It was leading edge, it was cutting edge. They saw the safety concerns out on the roads and rose to that occasion. And there was a point in time that the city council at the time, I remember watching, considered, after watching police officers, be teased, what did they call it, the hamburger law, because you weren't supposed to be eating while you drove. There was a lot of teasing about it. And there was actually a discussion here about overturning that at one point. And the council at that time said, no, this is a city that prides itself on safety. And they encouraged the residents at the time, why not instead heed the ordinance and try to be as safe as possible? Since then, my son had a friend who was nearly killed by a distracted driver. It's amazing he survived. One of the council people at the time, who had been a citizen vocal against the ordinance, also was struck by a distracted driver and said he would never bring that topic up again, that he recognized the need for the safety. With the proclamations earlier and the discussions we've had, safety is a very broad term. It can't just be our police department that makes us safe. We have to work with them. We have to work with one another. We have to hit pause and think, what tone are we setting for one another, for our children, and recognize that, 20 years from now, we may look back on this meeting video of us wearing masks and laugh that we were wearing masks because the science will have told us they were useless. Or we'll look back and say, thank goodness we were all wearing masks in those meetings and the ribbon cuttings and every event we went to, because the science proved that it helped. Just like our distracted driving ordinance. At the time, there was some RCA dog, is this really necessary? And look where we are. Now it's a statewide law. It's a national discussion about keeping one another safe. I guess this past weekend just reminded me not just the focus of attacks, but of all the goodness that there was going on. And I think we really, really, really need to feel like we did right in that moment about taking care of one another, giving one another grace, being patient with one another, driving politely, greeting one another like we did in the days following those attacks, where people were smiling at one another again. And we have to smile with our eyes, I realize, because of the masks, but our first responders, I know you get criticism and you're apolitically enforcing laws, rules that you didn't make. I hope our community will come and rally around the situation, help you continue to de-escalate. I see that here in Troy. We can have conversations about it, we can look at it, but we need to be there for our first responders just like they always are for us. And that, I think, is a lesson of 20 years ago. And I hope we can take that forward in the coming weeks here in our community, our region, wherever you go. We're all starting to travel now. Pastor Bob's invocation tonight is something that I will carry with me for a while. It was very, very fitting, and I really appreciated it. I needed to share that reflection of, I hope we won't become a divided community like we have seen at certain times in this city. We've come together. We've had issues and we come together. I hope that we will continue to work together and dialogue together constructively as we keep going forward through these times. And Mayor Baker and my fellow council colleagues, I can testify to the fact that this is probably one of the best teams. We don't always agree on every topic, but we disagree respectfully, and we bring ideas to the table where we can find the compromise. I hope that our residents see that and that they'll continue to work with us as we do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. Additional council comments? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga.
It's always hard to follow Councilmember Hoderick, but hopefully this is in the same spirit of that message of peace and of tolerance and working together that you were sharing. And again, I do thank Pastor Bob Cornwall for that beautiful invocation that was exactly about that, that unity in these difficult times, as well as Ed Cheswick, who spoke with us on behalf of the International Day of Peace. And the thing I just want to call out a couple of things really over the next week or so that are all about that are about peace and tolerance and finding a way to celebrate our differences and coming together. And the first is, we have Troy Days coming up. We often think of it being a family festival, but something that I've always loved so much about Troy Days is on Sunday, the very last day, it's International Day, and it's where we really celebrate our international cultures and diversity in Troy. And I'm so proud that our Global Troy Advisory Committee continues to really spearhead and bring that day about, and was honored when I was on that committee, had a role to play in that day. So just encourage all of us, if you're able to make it out. I know that's always a real highlight. I know the mayor, you'll be speaking at that event as you chair the Global Troy Advisory Committee, and thank you for your service in doing that. And I'm sure you'll have more to say on it. And also want to thank Lisa Bika-Grodsky for, as long as I know, she, as a member of Global Troy, has sometimes single-handedly, along with Nas and a few others on that committee, organized that beautiful, beautiful day. And it's been so much of her work. So I just really want to, again, that's Troy. That's our volunteerism. That's our spirit of coming together and just bringing our community out. It also is the very last day of Welcoming Week. As the mayor said, Welcoming Week actually already started September 10th until the 19th. And it's a week where we celebrate our new Americans, those who've become U.S. citizens. And it's important for me, especially this year, because my husband, as many of you know, just became a U.S. citizen this year. He just got his U.S. passport, which is always really, really exciting. So really glad that we continue to find a way to just honor that and recognize that we in Troy, we do have such a large community of new Americans here in this city. Also happy to see that we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, which begins on Wednesday, September 15th as well. And again, it's just about celebrating our differences and hope and peace in the midst of that, along with our International Day of Peace, September 21st, which we heard about today. And I know we have that event coming up as well this week. And so all of that is really about finding unity and celebrating the togetherness that makes Troy so wonderful. And so those are the things, why residents choose Troy. And we're proud to be here and to serve with you and next to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga. Councilmember Hamilton.
She covered that.
She covered. Anybody else? I have a few things, which are hard to go after Ellen, hard to go after Rebecca going after Ellen, but I'm still going to do it. Couple things. Lighter and heavier. First, I'll start with the light. Frightful 5K is, again, coming back October 23rd, 4th. It's a Sunday morning. It'll start here in the community center parking lot. You get to run on Big Beaver, which will be shut down for a portion of it, and back through around the Civic Center campus. I registered this past week, and I'm looking forward to running probably my slowest time of all the 4 times that I've done it. So that's going to be good. And it's always cold and rainy that morning, but we do it anyway. But that, you can, on our website, you can register there, and it's a good community event regardless. Troy Farmers Market, we're heading into our final 3 weeks of the Farmers Market, which is this year in the north parking lot of the community center, 12 to 5 on Fridays. There's 3 more on the 17th, this Friday, the 24th, and then October 1st. That'll be our last. Market manager Cindy Stewart and Amy McCaig do a great job. They are literally there, I always say from sunup to sundown, but I think they kind of are. Whether it's raining or not, they're setting up, they're working the whole market, managing the vendors and all the residents that are visiting, and then breaking things down before they go home themselves. So please do check it out. There's been, the vendors have been providing really good produce and other options this year. I've been there for several, doing market meetups with the mayor, talking to residents, and really enjoying that opportunity to talk to a lot of people. And I'm always amazed how people may not, it's not very full in here tonight, but people they do pay attention, and they know a lot of things that are going on, and they ask a lot of good questions, and it's been a great opportunity. Let's see. I saw today that we had 2 new police officers sworn in and are starting their official work in the police department, and that's followed, I think it was probably maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. I think there were 4 or 5 more, so it's good to see. Chief, good job. Get them in there. We appreciate that very much. And to piggyback on Ellen's talk about public safety a little bit, and I think that, our community, one of the things that people have talked to me a lot about at these farmers market meetings where I'm talking with people is how much they do value and appreciate our public safety, the strong focus we put on it here in the city, and they stay in Troy because they feel safe here. They come to Troy because they know it's a safe community. And the first responders, as we talk about 9/11, I say 100 times, as often as I can, they're running into the Twin Towers, so everyone's running out for their safety. That says a lot about what they do on a day-to-day basis, whether that's in a major metropolitan area like New York City on 9/11, or whether that's here in Troy and there's a tanker spill or there's some other major catastrophe. Those first responders are running in to keep us safe while we're taught to run away. So please give them the respect and courtesy they deserve while they're doing the jobs that, like Ellen said, they didn't make those laws, they're just forced to enforce them, and they're doing it for our community, and I appreciate them very much, as I know a good bulk of our community really does, because I hear a lot about it. A couple other just quick things I wanted to mention. Troy Days does start this Thursday. We have opening ceremonies Thursday evening, 6 p.m. I'll be there. Some of the council members, I'm sure, will be there. There'll be a kind of a reopening with Troy Community Foundation, talking and thanking their volunteers for the work they're doing. As we all recall, it's no longer a city event officially. It's the Troy Community Foundation who is sponsoring the event in conjunction with the city. Obviously, it's on our Civic Center campus, and we provide a lot of support for them in the community. I know Kurt Bovensee with the DPW is instrumental in working with them to make sure everything is handled on that end, and I thank him for that. But we will cut the ribbon there and officially open the ceremonies, and we hope to have great weather Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because that we've learned is the biggest factor in affecting attendance for Troy Days. And there'll be fireworks on Saturday night, which again, we hope for good weather. And the International Day is very special in our community, and I know there's a great slate of performers who are eagerly anticipating the opportunity to come back and perform for our community, representing various religious and cultural groups from really a broad swath. So I will be there. You told them that I was speaking. That probably turned some people away. I'm really just there to say thank you. Don't let that scare you. It's really, really about the performances, and there really will be some wonderful ones. The last thing I just wanted to mention is tonight, in the midst of celebrating Miss India USA and talking about the International Day of Peace, we had 2 proclamations relating to suicide awareness and substance use disorder. And I feel like those got a little bit lost in the middle of that. It's hard to go from celebrating Miss India USA to talking about suicide. I was admittedly a little bit, probably my tone didn't shift as much as it should have. But my wife is a marriage and family therapist, and she's always quick to remind me that, yes, we know teenagers are definitely at risk for suicide, but the next group that tends to have the highest suicide rates is men in their 50s. So don't think once you make it through your teen years, you're out of the woods. And that there's a lot of men in their 50s in the city of Troy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's been a tough year and a half for a number of reasons. So please keep everybody, your neighbors, your family, your friends, strangers that you may not like very much, but you can see something might be up. That simple contact of reaching out to them sometimes can make all the difference in the world. So please, the best thing we can do is be a good neighbor to our community members. And of course, the substance use disorder and what Oakland Community Health Network is doing. I miss very much our Troy Community Coalition events that we haven't had since COVID began. But their focus on getting to our children and helping them prevent the substance and drug and alcohol abuse, I think is such a big part of how those kids grow up in our community and makes for a better community overall. So I look forward, hopefully, to having their events come back when it's all deemed proper. I know they're doing a lot of good work now still with the police department, with the schools, but we're not having their celebrity night dinner in October. We're not having their Incredible Kids ceremonies. We've missed out on a lot of their good things that brings that issue to the front and center here in Troy. So I didn't want those proclamations to kind of get lost in the more celebratory and peace type proclamations. So I think that's about it. That is it. Any other council comments? Did anyone think of something? Thought sparked? All right. Well, we have no closed session this evening, so with that long council comment from the mayor, we're adjourned.